Hey guys, welcome back to Stygian Arc. I'm Sylvester and I'm currently developing a game with the working title of Extraction. It's a PlayStation 1 style Lovecraftian horror game with simulation elements. In this video I'll be covering recent developments of the project and progressing with the vertical slice. I'll cover redesigning the player drone, putting together the first playable environment, upgrading the visuals and more. Alright, with that out of the way, let's roll the intro. Okay, so in the previous video, I finished making some assets and events related to the mission rewards and challenges. Now I needed to focus on the level design and implementing the gameplay content. A big part of the game will be skillfully navigating through mines and caves. So I really needed to turn my attention towards the player drone. At the moment I had this blocky test asset that was functional, it worked well, but it just wasn't what I wanted. And since I'll be designing the levels around this, I really need to give it more attention. So I did some brainstorming and a bit of research to figure out a design for the drone, and I really would like these two components of a large fan and a jackhammer style mining piece of equipment. I want it to be a little bit quirky and a little bit weird and not really something you would see in reality, so I figured a drone with a jackhammer attached to it would be quite interesting to control. I started to develop it and I came up with this first variation. It looked in line with what I'd researched and planned, but in practice it felt too small, too nimble and too safe, when really I wanted the drone to feel crude, weighty and powerful. So I decided to go back to the drawing board and redesign this again. I played around with a few different designs, but I eventually came up with this pod type of drone. I felt like the size increase made it feel a lot more weighty and a lot more powerful. After all, it's supposed to be splitting rocks apart with a jackhammer, so I felt like it needed to be this hulking piece of equipment. Once I was happy with this, I gave it a bit of a visual upgrade just to give it a bit more character and really see how this would look. Alright, now that I had a drone I was happy with, I moved on to the level design. Hey, I just want to interrupt real quick and say that if you're enjoying the video, please subscribe and please leave a like, it helps me out a lot. Thanks. Anyway, back to the video. Now, moving on to level design for the vertical slice. So each level is focused around navigating the caves to get to an excavation site where you'll need to gather materials and bring it back to the surface for analysis. So I started my planning by writing a list of events I want to play out during this mission. I then designed the level environments around them. So I actually started kind of backwards with this. I started with the excavation site rather than the tunnels to the excavation site, just because this would allow me to test out the mining functions in a relevant context. So I made a cavern and added some obstacles such as rancid water, tight entrances in and out of the mine, and stalagmites which would cause damage to the player. These would all serve as threats to the player and a reason for them to be careful when navigating the excavation site. I added a small mining area to test out the mineral gathering and then did some visual improvements to add the atmosphere to the location. This area is looking pretty good now and I'm really looking forward to building upon it. It's crazy how much lighting and adding a few assets can really add a lot to your scene. So within this environment I did quite a bit of testing to see how the navigation felt when going through these difficult environments, how the mining felt, and just visually how everything came together. I feel like I'm on the right path, but this is still going to take some iteration as I develop the game further. So if you guys have any thoughts and opinions on this environment, drop it in the comments. I do read all the comments and there's usually some really good information in there. I really appreciate all the feedback and involvement that I've had so far on these videos. Yeah, so that just about wraps up the bulk of development for this month. There were some other small things I did, such as redesign the hub. I got sick of looking at this prototype environment, so I just made a new terrain and added some likes just to keep it fresh. I did actually plan out the majority of the story for the game and the mission list, just so I knew where I would be going with this game and get a gauge of how big it's going to be. Finally, I did do some project management, bug fixing, and my monthly backup. The next few weeks of development will be focused on this level and fleshing it out and adding gameplay to it. This is looking good now, it feels good to play, but I really want to see how the gameplay is going to turn out. So before I go, I'm going to have a look to the comments of the previous video. As usual, the comments were full of great comments, supportive comments, and you guys throwing out some really good ideas. So I got this comment about adding monsters to the game, and if there's any sort of entity from the Lovecraft mythos. Now, we're 3 videos in here and I haven't really talked about the horror of this game. Now I'm trying to keep that under wraps as much as possible, just because I think you can't show too much horror without spoiling it, but I can say yes, the plan is to implement some Lovecraftian monsters and entities later into the game. I really hope to be talking about that soon, but right now I really want to focus on the main gameplay loop. So So as well as that comment, I got this one from Frederick, where he goes into depth about his game idea, which sounds really interesting. This sounds right up my street. This is exactly the kind of horror game I would probably buy. So if you guys are reading this and are interested, keep your eye out for that. As well as that, guys, if you do have any games you're working on, do drop them in the comments. I find it really interesting to read about what other games people are working on. Also, I love getting inspiration from other people, sharing ideas, and just generally watching as other indies get their games off the ground. I feel like some indie developers have the most interesting game ideas out there, and we should all try to support them as much as possible. Okay, so finally, I'm just going to say again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all the support, all the views, the likes, subscribes, etc. Which, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Do let me know what you think about this month's progress, and I'll see you in the next one.